Let's jump right in. Today, we're taking a journey together, one that starts with local, grounded healing and branches all the way out to global connection. Whether you're an educator, a youth leader, or one of our aligned partners here in the UnityNet ecosystem, I am so glad you're tuning in to this explainer. We're going to be exploring a foundational framework for regenerative development. And honestly, it's a roadmap that is just calm, deeply relational, and totally rooted in the physical places we call home. So let's get started.
Right at the center of all this is a remarkably simple but powerful axiom. Healing is the first infrastructure. You know, we live in a world that is constantly rushing to build complex technology or deploy massive, scalable global systems. But this framework, it actually asks us to pause. It really leans into a principle we call governance before scale. And what that means is, before we install a single piece of physical hardware, and way before we scale up any digital networks, human connection and emotional repair absolutely must be our foundation. Societal and economic restoration, it literally cannot happen without prioritizing the social-emotional health of a community first.
So what does this actually look like on the ground? Well, it starts incredibly small, physically and locally. It starts with a story bench. This is basically the smallest physical unit of peace infrastructure. It's not some abstract concept, it's highly practical. Picture a local stewardship gathering, maybe just a simple bench sitting in Pomona Mills Park or tucked away in your local community garden. It acts as this low-barrier gathering point for intergenerational listening. It's where youth and elders can just sit, share stories, and let trust begin to form naturally, without any pressure or extraction. It's the perfect quiet proof that relationships simply has to come before scale. And that local foundation builds into something really profound. Because, let's be honest, trust is not rebuilt through digital systems or staring at screens. It's rebuilt through embodied presence. We're talking about face-to-face, unhurried listening. We're talking about elders and youth physically working side by side. It's the shared, hands-on care of our physical spaces, our parks, our gardens, and our local watersheds. When communities come together for synchronized ecological ceremonies, like tree plantings or a water blessing, we aren't just doing environmental work. We're actively cultivating peace. Healing and stewardship are absolute prerequisites for any real regenerative development.
Now, if you are an educator tuning in right now, this requires a pretty vital transition. We really have to move away from teaching peace and ecology as just abstract classroom theories. We need to step outside. It's all about transitioning toward grounded, hands-on community projects. We actually like to call this mending work, because when students take what they're learning and apply it directly to restoring the social and ecological fabric of their very own neighborhoods, that's when the learning becomes real. It becomes a physical, lived experience.
And this brings us to a really fun concept, edutainment nodes. So, instead of a rigid traditional curriculum, local schools transform into these vibrant hubs. They merge cultural arts, dance, and creative movement right alongside student-led peace club models. It's about creating an environment where learning is highly engaging, but also deeply tied to Indigenous knowledge stewardship. By weaving arts and culture into these local hubs, we empower the youth to really take ownership of their ecological responsibility. And as you'll see in a minute, these local nodes don't just stay isolated. They are actually the building blocks for global sister-school connection. At this point, you might be wondering, okay, so where does artificial intelligence and technology fit into all of this? Well, here is the absolutely crucial principle. Technology must be a guest in the circle, not the landlord of culture. In an era where hyperscale AI is everywhere, UnityNet takes a much more deliberate, humble approach. AI and digital tools are invited in as guests to support local wisdom and community goals. But they never get to dictate the terms, they don't get to extract data without consent, and they certainly don't override cultural traditions. Technology has to serve life, not the other way around. So how do we actually practice this ethical framework? We use tools like storypods to safely document Indigenous cultural wisdom and living languages. And the process is very intentional. Step 1, community consent must absolutely come first, no exceptions. Only then are shared oral histories recorded, and that is always done under the strict authority of the elders. Finally, the data goes directly into sovereign storage, meaning the community completely owns and controls it, not some massive tech corporation. This whole process upholds what we call the drafter, not decider principle. We use AI to help draft and assist, but human beings, grounded in their local ecology, always decide.
And here's where the magic happens, because we've prioritized governance and trust first. Those small, local stewardship actions begin to ripple outwards. They create what we call global peace corridors. We build these corridors through twinning relationships. Think about linking a local Canadian municipality, like Markham or Thornhill, directly to a global anchor, like the Sinai River Watershed in Kenya, or the Arctic Watershed. It's just this beautiful model of sister schools and youth-led peace initiatives sharing their solidarity, their knowledge, and their regenerative tools all across the globe.
Ultimately, healing and stewardship happen one voice at a time. True abundance, the kind that lasts, isn't found in technical overload or utopian exaggeration. It's cultivated through humility, careful attention, and really deliberate community building. It's about the simple act of listening, unhurried on a park bench. It's about treating our natural landscapes as active, living witnesses to our care. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a question to chew on today. What will you plant in your local watershed? And I don't just mean trees, though of course trees are wonderful. I mean, what seeds of trust, what seeds of intergenerational connection, and what seeds of peace will you plant in your own neighborhood? I really encourage you to step outside today, find your local gathering space, and just begin your own local stewardship journey.
Let's let these three truths anchor us as we move forward. Healing is the first infrastructure. Parenting is the first curriculum. Culture is the first currency. If we can just ground ourselves in these truths, piece by piece, relationship by relationship, we really can build a world where no one has to thrive alone and nothing is left behind. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I wish you profound peace on your continued journey. Take care.